Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Neville and welcome to Selective Imagery. Welcome to Thanks for the Memories, Part 19. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Thanks for the Memories. Today we're going to talk about the Argus C44, which was a coincident image coupled rangefinder camera that came out only for 2 years. It was introduced in March of 1956 and they only made it until 1957. And it was the latest and greatest and the last of the Argus rangefinders produced, with the exception of an updated version of this model, which was the C44R. And I'll tell you what that added in a second. So first I'll just show you the camera. So here is the Argus C44. So here's the front, and we'll go over what everything does in a little bit. So here's the front, here's the top, nothing much on the back. And then we have the bottom. Okay, so the difference between this version, which is just the C44, and the R version, which came out from 1958 to 1962, and then that was the end of their rangefinders from then on. The R version added a rapid advance lever. This is your film advance knob right now, so you had the traditional lever, and you also had a pop-up, conventional pop-up lever that you would turn to rotate to rewind your film versus a rewind knob like this. And then you also had the ability to add the optional Argus CM2 coupled selenium exposure meter, which was a big sucker that stuck out from the camera body. And of course then you would have a metering dial indicator inside the viewfinder. Right now when you look through the viewfinder, the only thing you see is the circular focus patch that helps you more accurately obtain focus with the rangefinder setup. Now these cameras were made to be really the affordable option for the American consumer that wanted an interchangeable lens rangefinder camera. Obviously there were much more expensive options out there for the pros, such whether it be Leica rangefinder bodies or even Nikon rangefinder bodies. But Argus always priced their cameras really for what I call the moms and pops of the world, okay, that just wanted to capture images of their family, their vacations, their birthdays, their holidays, things like that. And the price point was a lot cheaper than anything that came out of Japan or Germany. Now I could not find the exact cost of what this model was back in 1956, but the previous model, the C4, that was about $95. So I would think that this was maybe slightly more expensive than that, but like I said, comparatively inexpensive compared to German and Japanese counterparts. Now when they came out with the C4, they actually had a company that would modify the camera for $10 that would allow you to put interchangeable lenses on it, because it was not an interchangeable camera. So for a $10 fee, they modified a handful of C4 cameras were modified to accept interchangeable lenses from a German lens manufacturer called Ennawerke, Ennawerke, and that came out just prior to the C44, and really this uses the C4 body, but they implemented an interchangeable lens design on the C44, and that's really the main difference. Now, the lens mount on this camera is, let's just say, quirky. It's a bayonet mount, and we'll say with a twist, and we'll get into that in a little more detail in a little while. But it finally made it so you had an interchangeable lens rangefinder, and made by an American company. These were made in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Okay, the standard Syntagon 50mm f2.8 is what is on this camera. Okay, and that was the only lens that was made in America by Argus, and it was actually their first 4-element tessera-like lens, and it was that they ever made, and the design was said to have been computed. It was a first computer aided, computer designed lens using an early digital computer called MIDAC, which was belonged to the University of Michigan. There were 3 other lenses that you could get for this camera. You could get a 50mm f1.9, a 35mm f3.5, and also a 35mm f4.5 and a 100mm f3.5, of which I have one right here. So this is with the lens hood on. It's obviously, I'll take the lens hood off later on. You can see how small that 100mm lens is. Now, the other 3 lenses were made in Germany by a company called Steinhall, and they had a little bit better finish on them. However, if you put a polarizer filter and you screwed it on to the threads, like this one here, you can see the threaded portion here, but this threaded ring comes off this lens that was made in the United States, and you could either use a threaded filter, and when you focus, couple ways of focusing, you could just grab this flange area here, okay, this ring, or you use the dial, because it's geared. Axis, this knob acts as a gear for doing your focusing. Now, after all these years, it's a little bit stiff, but you could see this ring moving. Or you could just, if it's easier, you could just grab that ring and do it that way. Okay. But anyway, on the lens that they made in Ann Arbor, when you move your focus, the threads don't move. On the ones they made in Germany, the threads do move. So you can't use a circular polarizer because the polarizer is rotating when you rotate your focus. On this lens, it does not. So this one, you could facilitate a circular polarizer, and you could either put it on the threads, or what's kind of cool is if you had other kind of filters for like fluorescent light, daylight filters, filters that basically you just would put on and didn't have to rotate at all. You could take this outer threaded ring off, which I'll do right now. I'll unscrew it. Give me a second. It has quite a few threads on it, actually. An hour later. This is like where SpongeBob says, 1 hour later. So take the ring off. And it accepts drop-in filters. you can just drop the filter and put the ring on. And I'm going to show you some filters here quick. So here's a cute little filter holders. These are Kodak filters, Series 5 they call them, Series 5 filters. And what's neat about them is these holders are like a little mini bayonet mount. You know, you can stack them. Okay, then you have a little nub here that you grab with your finger, and you slide the window open all the way, and voila, out pops a filter. You can then take this filter and drop it onto the lens, in front of the lens. Screw this back on. Like I said, it seems like this has like an inch of threads, but it just takes a while to get it on here. There you go. This is a fluorescent filter, in case you're curious. Looks kind of cool. But so that was neat. So you could put a threaded, with the ring on here, you could put a threaded filter on it. You can put a drop-in filter. And of course, these drop-in filters would be a lot cheaper. And we'll get into the lenses, removing the lenses. Oh, what a joy it is to remove this lens. So we'll get there in a second. So now the fun part. We're going to try to remove this lens, and this is not the first take on this segment of this video. And the first time when I thought I had the lens on, it fell off of it and landed on the floor. So this is not a camera that you want to replace lenses while you're at the edge of a cliff taking pictures and you decide you want to put the 100mm on, get a little closer, or change it while you're leaning over a boat or leaning over a body of water. You want to make sure you're sitting in a chair, sitting on the ground, doing it from your car. So if the lens does decide to fall off, one, you don't wreck it or lose it permanently. So anyway, to take the lens off on this focusing, we're going to call this like the focusing wheel. Okay, on that you have a lever. Okay, you can barely see an arrow. There's an arrow there. Okay, you got to push that in to release and twist the lens off in a counterclockwise direction. But you have to be at infinity focus first. So the first thing you do is you adjust your focus wheel so that you are at infinity. And once you're at infinity, you can push that lever in, and hopefully I could do it well enough while I'm holding the camera up here and twist the lens, and it comes off. That worked out pretty good. Now if you look at the body, you can see the leaf shutter. You can see the bayonet mount has a red dot there, and then this focusing wheel, see how it moves here in conjunction with that? There's a red dot on that as well. These dots have to be lined up, and on the wheel, that dot is on like a little square piece of aluminum. Okay, why is that important? Well, when you put the lens back on, first off, you got to make sure you didn't move the focusing when you twisted this to take it off. So you got to make sure you're on infinity. Let me show it this way. Okay, so you can see that your arrow, you're with infinity, and underneath the infinity mark you have a notch. That notch has to line up over that square. So we shall try to do that. Notch over square, twist. And what I like to do is just move the focus wheel, and then make sure the lens, with it up here, make sure the lens does not come off. The lens is not coming off. Okay, so it's secure. So it's a funky arrangement. You got to get used to it. And you're probably going to have a few times the lens falls off before you learn your lesson. I obviously did not. It fell off in a previous take that I recorded. And that's how it goes. The outermost ring on this camera is, like, it's not for focus. So what is it for? It's for your f-stops. Okay. And let's see. So we'll go over what's on the camera. Okay, obviously your lens release levers here on this focusing ring, we'll call it. The lens itself, your shutter speed dial, which is 1/10 of a second to 1/300th of a second, plus bulb mode. The shutter, some is loud, because leaf shutters on older cameras might have been a little loud, not like a Hasselblad lens, but here you go. Doesn't really sound any worse than my focal plane shutter on some old Kodak cameras. Sound pretty much the same. So when you look at the front, like I said, you can change your shutter speeds. Here you got your geared focus knob, and your window here for your rangefinder. You look at the top. What do you have? You have your rewind crank. You have your accessory shoe, which is a hot shoe. You have your film counter, your shutter release, and your film advance knob. Not the when they came out with the next version of this model, it had the film advance lever, and it had to lift up with the little knob on it to turn and rewind the film. Okay, and then if you look at the bottom, you have your tripod mount, and you have a rectangular piece here with grooves in it, and that's what you grab and rotate to pop the back off the camera. Okay, which we'll do. Oh, one more thing, and then on the back you obviously have your viewfinder, and you have a switch. You got X and M, that's your flash sync. M is for bulbs, X is for electronic flash. So let's pop the back off this puppy. And as is typical of cameras of this era, the back also removes the bottom. It's all one piece. Pressure plate. Now, a bad thing is that this pressure plate is shiny. You're much better off when the pressure plate is black, because this could reflect stray light onto the film if you had a problem. So that was kind of a design oopsa. And then here's the back, and you can see the shutter, leaf shutter. Put the back on. Take a second, and now we're good to go. Now notice that there was no little button here to push if you want to rewind your film. So you're probably saying, well, how do I rewind my film? We'll show you that trick in a second. So to rewind the film, you actually have to lift up on your film advance knob. Lift it up and turn it, and you'll see it sticks up a little bit. So that disengages the film drive, so then you can then rewind your film. And then once you get, take the film out, of course, you got to remember to Pop that back down again, turn it, and it'll drop back down. Now, a few things you could buy for this camera was they had a neat attachment called the Power Viewfinder. I don't have one of those, nor will I invest in it, I don't think. But it gives you 3 magnifications of the field of view corresponding with the areas that you're seeing with your particular lens, 35, 50, or 100 millimeter lenses. You have built-in parallax adjustment, compensates for the difference between the lens and the viewfinder itself. And this attachment mounts on the accessory shoe, the camera. You could also buy what they call an Argus clip exposure meter. Didn't electronically interface with the camera at all. I mean, when you look through the camera, you only see, your viewing area and a circular patch to aid in focusing. And but it'd be like having a handheld meter, but it's conveniently located on the top of your camera for determining, what you might want to set your camera up for. That was a model L44. So, and like I said, here's the 100 millimeter lens without the hood on it. Very, very, very small. Very, very small. Ooh, I can see. What do I see? But anyway, overall, a nice interchange. It's solid. It has some weight to it. It has some heft to it. It's not a piece of junk by any means. But it was what I call the mom and pop camera. It was for the pictures of vacations, the kids swimming in the pool or at the lake, and birthday parties and things like that. Okay, and it was affordable. Argus sold. See, what they used to call the brick. You've probably heard of that. That model sold more than I think any other camera ever made. It was affordable. It gave you decent images. It worked good. I mean, these lenses are good. They're not fantastic, but you stop the lenses down, you're going to get a respectable quality image, which is more than good enough for everyday shooting. If you were a pro, would you buy this camera? Probably not. You'd be walking around with a Nikon S2 or an SP or Leica or Canon camera, what have you. But if you were on a budget and people, budgets were tight, this is a camera that would sell. This was a camera that you'd buy. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of the lens mount. It does work, but it's a little gimmicky, a little tricky, and take a little getting used to, and just make sure you don't drop it over a cliff. It doesn't fall off and go on a cliff. And that's about it. So, as I like to say, enjoy life, capture some of it, and get out there and shoot with whatever gear you have that you like. And have fun. That's what it's all about. So, take care. Until next time. Have a good one. Hey everybody, if you enjoyed this video, hey, give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Always nice to hear from you folks. And if you haven't subscribed, consider it. I would appreciate it if you would. But get out there and shoot and have a good time. Take care. Till the next Thanks for the Memories edition.